The Millennium Stadium has been built as a cathedral for Welsh rugby. But there's murder on that high altar. These days, everyone beats us. The Western Samoans, the Italians. The Tibetans would, if only the Dalai Lama could get his monks into the scrum. The best scores at the stadium today are achieved by Welshmen playing with the round ball.
What a goal!
Isn't it time to give Welsh rugby a decent bury? Welsh rugby, it makes you weep. This year we got the wooden spoon in the Six Nations. Now even the Italians do the job better than we do. Were we right to adopt an English game invented by toffs, handling a funny-shaped ball?
Ryan Thomas leads.
Welsh rugby has given us some moments of national ecstasy. Gerald, JPR, JJ, Gareth and Barry John all helped turn the 70s into Welsh rugby paradise. By the time England had been put to the sword for the 9th time in March 1979, gallant Wales had won the Five Nations title 5 times, done the Grand Slam 3 times, picked up 5 Triple Crowns and beaten Australia twice. But now we're in Welsh rugby hell. By 1982, Wales was in the wilderness and would stay there for over 2 decades. Paradise was lost. Today, the Welsh Rugby Union struggles to hear its wake-up call. Or is it all just too late? When the Millennium Stadium was built, it was meant to inaugurate a new era in Welsh rugby. The gleaming sports arena, built just in time to host the 1999 Rugby World Cup, represented a renaissance moment. But it's not turning out like that. Welsh rugby fans don't have stars in their eyes as they did in the 1970s. And that's because the national side is bad enough to make hard men sob at their post-match pint. On match days, the stadium barely breaks even. While the WRU has built a wonderful stadium for £126 million, fans and commentators alike wonder how they can fail to produce a team worthy to play in it. Were we just blinded by the golden age?
You know, people in Wales tend to think it's a mystical thing that we're good at rugby. That we're genetically predestined to be good at rugby, that it's part of our heritage, part of our culture. But that's not the case at all. If you look back into history, we've been good at rugby probably 3 times. 1905, a little bit in the 50s, and then the golden era. And we've never got over the golden era.
At the time of the first golden age, it was still a bit odd that rugby was popular here. This was a public school game, one popularised by the English middle classes. And in Wales, rich colliery owners persuaded the working men of the South Wales coalfields into playing the game.
That is theatre, that is drama, that is spectacle, there's opportunity to settle scores, but also an opportunity for individuals to shine, for local pride, as well as national consciousness.
It was well-organised violence and thuggery, and Wales, full of big muscle men, quickly became the rugby team that everyone feared. The industrial workforce worked hard and played hard on its way to success. In 1905, the team was crowned unofficial champions of the world, and 6 years later, Wales received the first official Grand Slam. But that was to be Wales's last such honour for 39 years. A horrific cycle of feast followed by famine had begun. An upturn in the cycle came with regular wins in the 1950s. But when the Welsh Rugby Union completely reviewed its coaching policies in the 1960s, at last the stage was set for the rugby heaven of the 1970s. Success was fuelled in large part due to the concentration of young talent coming from South and West Wales. The likes of Barry John, Gareth Edwards and JJ Williams. But they were already a different breed from the Man Mountains of before. Muscle didn't count for everything anymore. Suddenly, having a brain also became a key requirement. This new breed of quick-witted athletes were being spawned thanks largely to the old grammar school system.
I came from the Maestig Valley, went to Maestig Grammar School, Maestig Comprehensive, and every week there was 2 PE lessons and 2 games lessons, and the games lessons was rugby.
J.J. Williams's PE master at Maesteg was Di Watkins, and the old grammar school regime meant that he worked Saturdays and gave up a number of afternoons and evenings. He would push talented young players into the clubs, who in turn would get spotted by the WRU's coaches, and the rest is recorded history. It all became central to Max Boyce's celebration of Wales's mythical sporting ability. But poor old Max was peddling the same stuff 30 years on. And that was just like the WRU. Once the glory days of the 70s were over, its management of the game didn't move with the times. But the times, they were a-changing. By the end of the 1970s, Wales's schools had largely gone comprehensive. Now, teachers didn't want to take games lessons on Saturdays anymore, and that was one of the reasons for strike action.
You know, the national curriculum doesn't allow much PE in schools nowadays. We had 2 good gymnastics lessons, which is important for our fitness and our strength building, even though we didn't realise it at the time, and we had 2 games lessons. Now, the youngsters nowadays hardly get that in schools. As a result, they're not so fit, as naturally fit or conditioned mentally and physically as we were.
Until fairly recently, not many more than 30 schools throughout the whole of South Wales playing Saturday morning rugby. And rugby has lost its purchase on that society and on that culture at precisely the time when its own performance on the field is also turning against it.
For the players themselves, the culture of the game in Wales has been in no hurry to change. The image of the gifted, boozy amateurs of the 70s, typified by the cartoons of Gren, is supposed to have been banished in the professional era. Today's gnarled warhorses, particularly the forward players, are supposedly fitter than ever. They're still all cauliflower ears and pushing 19 stone, but that's supposed to be muscle, not beer guts. Now they fill themselves with a high-protein diet and pursue relentless exercise programs. So they arrive at peak fitness on the day of the match. Or do they? Remember that shock 36-6 defeat in October 2001 against Ireland? Some felt the only explanation was booze.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a few drinks after the game and having the sing-songs, that's great. Only if it's kept under control. Because other people around the world won't be doing it. And alcohol will affect you. And if you're not totally focused, you won't survive.
And bizarrely, some of these walking doorways have made clumsy efforts to try and compete in the fashion stakes with football icons like David Beckham, who's marketed as a brand in his own right.
Football is sexier, football is more glamorous, football has people like Beckham, where you can see in all sorts of contexts apart from a sporting one. Rugby's a product, it's got to be sold, it's a bums-on-seat thing now. And especially for youngsters, they have so many demands on their time. On a Saturday afternoon, where are they going to go, you know? They want to go where the best entertainment is. So yeah, rugby's got a lot to learn from football.
But it'll be a long time before this happens in rugby for rather obvious reasons. So why is it that the players of Wendy Ball, as rugby players disparagingly call football, are so much more sorted at playing a professional game than our thugby players? Football went truly professional way back when, while Wales's rugby heroes were garlanded with all that unpaid glory. Jimmy Hill's stewardship of the Professional Footballers Association heralded big changes for the beautiful game. Before long, football would be a big money game, with top talents commanding salaries under professional managers. But by the 70s and 80s, football in Wales, like football across the UK, had an image problem. Violence on the terraces and safety concerns undermined soccer's wholesome appeal. But the managers of the game worked together with the FA to move mountains and clean up football's act. If they hadn't, the money would have just gone.